Crime and Crime Again is a true crime podcast containing subject matter that may be graphic or disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. This episode discusses topics that may be triggering, including domestic violence and stalking. Please take care while listening. In 2010, the CDC began conducting an ongoing survey, known as the National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey. The survey was designed to collect data and develop comprehensive statistics surrounding the issue of intimate partner violence, which can include physical, mental, or emotional abuse, sexual violence, and stalking. The survey was republished with improved data in 2017. Today, we'll be focusing specifically on stalking and its implications. Some of the behaviors that were measured when collecting data for this survey included unwanted phone calls, voicemails, or text messages, unwanted emails or social media messages, unwanted gifts, watching or following from a distance, spying with a device, unwanted appearances at the victim's home, work, or school, leaving threatening items for the victim to find, or breaking into the victim's personal property and intentionally leaving evidence behind to scare the victim. Almost all of these behaviors were perpetrated against Amie Harwick, whose story we'll be talking about today. The survey found that 1 in 6 women and 1 in 19 men had experienced some form of stalking in their lifetime. Around 6 in 10 women and 4 in 10 men were stalked by a current or former intimate partner. When looking at the prevalence of specific stalking behaviors, 75% of women who had been stalked reported receiving unwanted calls or messages. 68% of women had received threats of physical harm from their stalker, and 58% of women reported that their stalker had approached them or showed up, uninvited, to their home, work, or school. Stalking laws vary from state to state, and while victims can petition for protective orders against their abusers, the burden of proof lies squarely with the victim. And the required proof to obtain a protective order can also vary from state to state. Generally, victims must prove an instance of physical harm or prove that they are reasonably fearful that they are in imminent danger. Protective orders also do not last forever. They expire, which eventually requires a victim to file another petition, which can also mean having to face their abuser in court again. And it's important to note that protective orders are often violated. Sometimes a notarized piece of paper simply is not enough. Often, there are no real repercussions for the abuser or justice for the victim until it is far too late. 38-year-old Amie Harwick was a highly accomplished marriage and family therapist in Los Angeles, California, who counseled many of her clients about how to protect themselves and heal from abusive partners. But what many people didn't know about Amie is that for nearly a decade, she lived with the looming fear of a man whose obsession could not be swayed and who could not take no for an answer.
Hi, this is Dr. Amie Harwick. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist.
Born on May 20th, 1981, Amie Nicole Harwick was adopted as a child and grew up in Lansdale, Pennsylvania, a town of about 18,000 people just north of Philadelphia. She grew up with her brother Chris and graduated from North Penn High School in 1999. Amie was a bright, vibrant spirit and was known to be incredibly expressive and comfortable with exploring many different facets of her identity. Those who knew Amie, even as far back as high school, have consistently described her as one of the warmest, most loving, effervescent people they have ever known. In 2001, at 19 years old, Amie made the big move to Los Angeles, California. Originally, Amie moved to LA because at the time, she was married to a musician named Tommy, so she moved to LA with him. The relationship was rather short-lived and the two ultimately divorced, but Amie fell in love with Los Angeles, and her vivacious and eclectic spirit fit right into the Hollywood lifestyle, so she decided to stay and continue her education there. Amie was ambitious and driven, and she found numerous ways to pay her way through college. She worked as a go-go dancer and bartender in various nightclubs, and even received professional training in fire performing. The Playboy Mansion actually hired Amie on a few occasions as both a waitress and a fire performer. Amie also discovered that she loved being in front of the camera, and this led to her finding work doing a lot of commercial modeling. She even did shoots for the likes of both Playboy and Maxim. There was also a period of time where Amie worked as a personal trainer. She even released a workout DVD called Fit to Rock. Amie was not the type of person you could put into a box. She was multi-talented, and she had such an innate desire to succeed that she was willing to do what she had to do to see it to fruition. From a young age, Amie was fascinated by the human psyche and knew that she wanted to work with people and delve into the inner workings of the human mind. Amie also held a deep interest in the macabre. She loved horror movies, studied true crime cases such as the Black Dahlia and the murder of Sharon Tate, and she owned quite a collection of taxidermy pieces. These interests, coupled with her fascination with human psychology, led to Amie's interest in becoming a forensic psychologist. But after exploring more about the field, she decided that it wasn't quite the right fit. From that point, because she knew she still wanted to work with and help people, Amie decided that she wanted to go into marriage and family therapy. She went on to earn a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from California Polytechnic University in Pomona, and she then attended graduate school at Pepperdine University in Malibu, where she graduated and earned a Master of Arts in Clinical Psychology in 2012. Throughout all of her years in college, Amie continued working all of her side jobs, modeling, go-go dancing, and fire performing, to pay her way through school. As Amie grew in her education and career, she started to realize that there was a severe lack of sexuality education and training among marriage and family therapists. As Amie herself said, there was only one unit taught about sexuality while she was in college, which is surprising considering sex and sexuality in general can be a prominent and ongoing issue in so many relationships and marriages, and a problem that therapists often encounter with their clients. This led to her working under the supervision of one of her good friends, Mo Goes, who was also an accomplished sex therapist. Amie worked for Mo Goes from April 2013 to May 2014. This internship really kicked off her career. Within just a couple of months, she had a full roster of clients. Her success in her practice continued, even after Mo moved away, and Amie switched to a new supervisor. Amie was absolutely thriving. Over the years she'd lived in Los Angeles, she had made many connections and word about her practice made its rounds quickly, particularly with her specialty in sex therapy. Amie made it her mission to create a safe space for people to discuss and explore sexuality. She specialized in working with people who were part of heavily stigmatized communities, those in the kink and BDSM community, polyamorous people, and particularly sex workers. Amie even wrote a book called The New Sex Bible for Women, which was published in 2014. She decided to continue her studies by attending the Institute for Advanced Study of Human Sexuality, where she earned a doctorate of philosophy in 2016, and thus became Dr. Amie Harwick. Amie was incredibly passionate about helping people with mental health struggles and relationship obstacles surrounding sexuality. She sought to educate and empower women in their femininity and sexuality, and even traveled to China on more than one occasion to give lectures and teach classes for women. Amie was finding so much success in her career, in fact, that she started making guest appearances on TV shows as a licensed marriage and family therapist. She appeared on Braxton Family Values, a reality show, in June 2016, the Netflix documentary Addicted to Sexting in September 2016, and MTV's True Life in an episode about body positivity in June 2017. Amie also started a YouTube channel in 2017, where she started posting videos offering advice about topics like surviving a breakup, coping with depression, and how BDSM can improve your relationship skills. By all accounts, Amie Harwick lived an adventurous and fulfilling life. But behind the scenes, Amie had been struggling for years with some of the very same things that she counseled her clients about. To understand Amie's tragic death, we have to go back several years, to a time when she was still in graduate school, and before she had her own therapy practice. Sometime in 2010, Amie met a man named Gareth Pershouse. At the time, Amie was around 29 and Gareth would have been around 32 years old. And again, Amie was still in graduate school at this time and did not yet work as a therapist. Gareth was a software engineer / IT specialist who also worked as a photographer on the side. He also attempted stand-up comedy, but that endeavor never really took off. There are differing accounts of how Amie and Gareth met. Some sources have said that they met while Amie was working as a go-go dancer at an event, and other sources have said that they met while Amie was working as a model and Gareth was working on the set as a photographer. It's not clear exactly how they met, but it seems that they met while Amie was working in some capacity. People who knew Gareth described him as charming and charismatic, but many people also noted that there was always something unusual about him. Despite being generally friendly, he was one of those people who would always try to one-up your stories or accomplishments, and from what I could gather, he just tried too hard to be likable, which actually just struck people as off-putting. But Amie and Gareth really liked each other, and they quickly started a relationship. According to those who knew Amie, the relationship seemed great in the beginning. But over time, Amie's friends started to notice changes in her, and they started noticing unsettling behaviors from Gareth. Friends have noted that Gareth quickly became possessive. In public settings, when there were other men around, he would often show overt affection toward Amie, which friends have said clearly made Amie uncomfortable. Within just a year, the relationship had turned violent. In June 2011, Amie filed for her first restraining order against Gareth. In her report, Amie alleged that on multiple occasions, Gareth, quote, choked me, suffocated me, pushed me against walls, kicked me, dropped me to the ground with force restrained me, slammed my head into the ground, and punched me with a closed fist, end quote. Amie wrote that as a result of this abuse, she suffered injuries such as, quote, a sore ankle, whiplash, bruises on her arms, a large bruise that lasted 3 weeks from a punch to her leg, a sore back, and a hurt knee, end quote. Unfortunately, this restraining order was never officially enacted against Gareth. Amie was required to attend a hearing in court for a judge to officially sign off on the restraining order, but she never showed up to the hearing. It's unclear why she opted not to attend, but it's highly likely that it was because she would have to face Gareth in court. Their relationship continued for a time after this, but in April 2012, Amie filed for another restraining order against Gareth. In this report, dated April 12, 2012, Amie alleged that, quote, an argument in the car progressed to him physically pulling me out of the car. I got a bloody nose from his roughness. He then took my suitcases and threw them overhead very far, damaging them, end quote. This incident ultimately left Amie stranded on the side of the freeway where Gareth left her. On another page of her report, Amie wrote that in March of 2012, Gareth broke into her apartment building and smashed 10 picture frames against the front door of her apartment, before texting her, quote, things will get worse, end quote. The next day, Gareth broke into her apartment building again and left 4 dozen roses taped to her front door. And the next day, he once again broke into her apartment building and waited outside of her front door, playing music before sending threatening emails to some of her friends. It appears that Amie and Gareth had broken up by March of 2012, at the time these incidents happened, and these incidents resulted from Gareth's anger and desperation surrounding the breakup. Amie and Gareth had dated for about 1.5 years in total before Amie broke things off. This restraining order was officially filed against Gareth. In California, if there is no other expiration date specified, restraining orders automatically expire after 3 years. After obtaining the restraining order, all contact between Amie and Gareth seemed to stop, and Amie set her sights on moving forward with her life. Not long after removing Gareth from her life, Amie went on to graduate with her master's degree in clinical psychology from Pepperdine University. She soon ended up landing a job with the Department of Mental Health in California, where she would be working at a detention center for juvenile offenders. But before she could officially start her new job, she discovered that someone had sent private nude modeling photos to her new employer. This resulted in Amie losing the job opportunity. From the moment she found out, Amie suspected that Gareth had sent the photos. After losing that job opportunity, Amie accepted her friend Mo Goz's offer to come work under her supervision at her private practice. This is the internship that Amie held from April 2013 to May 2014, before launching her own highly successful therapy practice. And again, Amie went on to become a licensed marriage and family therapist and obtained a PhD from the Institute for Advanced Study of Human Sexuality. It seemed that Amie was finally free of Gareth, and according to her friends, she rarely ever talked about him. The restraining order against Gareth expired on April 11, 2015. It's unclear why Amie opted not to file for another restraining order, but it's likely that either 1, she hadn't heard from Gareth in 3 years and didn't feel that she was in danger, and or 2, she did not want to have to face Gareth in court again. Sometime in 2015, after the restraining order expired, Amie traveled to China to teach classes for women about empowerment and sexuality. Again, her career was already thriving at this point. When Amie returned home to California, she found that something was wrong with her computer, and she was missing some photo albums that she had kept from some of her modeling work. When she called her best friend, Robert Koshland, over to her home to inspect her computer, he discovered that it appeared someone had completely wiped it. Clearly, someone had broken into her home, destroyed her computer, and stolen her photos. Amie immediately suspected that the perpetrator was Gareth. Suddenly, her worst nightmare was starting all over again. After the break-in, it seems that Amie didn't experience any further incidents that may have been orchestrated by Gareth. She once again moved on and went about life as normal, but Gareth was always lurking in the back of her mind. Time went on, and sometime in 2017, Amie was attending a party of some sort in Los Angeles when she met none other than actor and host of The Price is Right, Drew Carey. Amie and Drew felt an instant connection and were both somewhat smitten with each other pretty early on. Just 1 week after meeting for the first time, Drew took Amie to Disneyland as a late birthday present. A week later, Drew invited Amie to Disneyland again, and this time he asked her to get some of her best friends together and he would pay for them all to go join in the fun too. According to Amie's best friend, Robert Koshland, everyone had a fantastic time, and while he was walking with Drew at the park, Drew told him that he thought he might marry Amie. By all accounts, Amie and Drew had a healthy, loving, fun relationship. However, Amie did face some personal obstacles with the notoriety and sometimes negative attention that came with dating someone as famous as Drew Carey. When rumors of their romance started to make rounds, Amie experienced a barrage of negative comments online. Some of these comments were malicious, false rumors made up about Amie, aimed at tarnishing her reputation, which Amie believed had originated from a former friend of hers. Despite the vitriol from online trolls, Amie and Drew took their relationship to the next step. Sometime in late 2017 or early 2018, Drew proposed to Amie, reportedly in Paris, France. On the Valentine's Day episode of The Price is Right in 2018, Drew walked out on stage holding Amie's hand and proudly announced her as his fiancé, giving her a kiss on the cheek while she smiled and waved to the audience. Months passed, and though most who knew Amie say that she and Drew were incredibly happy and in love, Amie was still struggling with the level of attention that came with being engaged to someone in the public eye. At some point during the relationship, Amie and Drew tried going to couples therapy to work through those obstacles. But in November 2018, less than a year after getting engaged, Amie and Drew called it off. Friends of both of them have said that though the breakup was amicable, they were both upset and distraught over it because they did love each other deeply. But as Amie's friends have said, she was never one to look back. She was always moving forward. Her career was continuing to blossom. Amie spent much of 2019 appearing on numerous podcasts as a guest, appearing on broadcasts such as Good Morning La La Land, and guest lecturing at her alma mater, Pepperdine University. She was also doing a lot of work with Pineapple Support, an organization that offers free and subsidized mental health care for people in the adult industry. Amie also created an online group called Foxy Feminists, where women in Los Angeles could connect with each other for business, to make friends, or just to seek inspiration or guidance. Amie was an incredibly busy woman, and from what I've learned about her, I can imagine that she wouldn't want it any other way.